Hi, John here from Up for Excel. Today I'm going to be showing you this amazing auto-expanding dynamic chart. You watch this, look. I'm going to add some more data onto the bottom of these figures here, and you watch this chart. Automatically expands. Not only that, it'll automatically, if I put in a new sales figure here, a bit higher, this one now highlights in green because it's the highest. What about profit? Make that one up to about, say, 400 profit. All of a sudden that one comes in highlighting yellow as being the most profitable. How about that? I'm going to show you exactly how you can produce this chart in this video. Stay tuned. Let's get on with it then, because there's quite a bit we need to do. On screen, I've got some basic sales and profit numbers for a few years. And we're going to turn that into the chart I showed you earlier, which is basically this one. Now, the way in which we're going to use several techniques in here, but the main technique we're going to use is something called a dynamic named range. Now, you don't really need to know much about it for this video. I'm going to talk you all the way through it, and you could literally just blindly do what I'm showing you without truly understanding it anyway. But I'm going to talk you through it slowly enough so that you can learn about it. So, a named range. What we're going to do is create an area of the screen and give it a name, but we're going to make that name automatically expand its own area to cover everything. So we'll have, for example, a sales data area, which initially will cover what I'm just highlighting here. But as soon as we enter a new number at the bottom, for example, it will expand to cover that. And that is essentially, we then link those named ranges to the chart, and then it allows it to automatically expand. So that's step one. Once we have this expanding chart, which is pretty amazing in itself, we then want to start highlighting different bars in different colors depending on different things. Now, you could use any number of techniques. I'm going to use the two highlights, one for maximum sales and one for maximum profit percentage. But you could literally highlight anything you want using the exact same technique. First thing then that we're going to do is set up our named ranges. So I'm going to go into the name manager and select new named range. Now, we can call it anything. This particular one I'm going to set up is the sales data. Now, I want to keep the names as short as possible, and you'll see why later, because you have to type them manually into the chart. So you don't want to be doing that, creating big long names that you can't remember how to spell. So I just use for all my named ranges, I use a lowercase n at the beginning of the word, and that just lets me refer to them, particularly if I'm using VBA or in these charts. I know that what I'm seeing is a named range. It kind of helps with formulas too, I feel. So anyway, I'm going to just call this one end sales. All right. So normally with a named range, you just highlight that and you just say, well, there's your sales range, and off you go. What we're going to do is we're going to use a formula in here, and we're going to make use of two particular functions in Excel. So we're going to use a count function to count the number of numbers in the sales column. So that gives us our auto expanding feature, and we're going to use that within an offset formula to pick up a range. So what I do, first off, offset. Now, you can, I'm not going to talk in detail through these formulas, but just take my word for it that the way the offset formula works is you pick a start position, in this case the top of the sales column. We're going to say how many rows we want to move off by, which will be 1. We want to move 1 row down to pick up the first number. We then, how many columns we want to move to the right? Well, we don't want to move any columns at all. how many rows deep do we want this? Now, this is where we want to insert our count function. So we're going to use count, and I'm actually just going to highlight that entire column B, like that, and say count that. Close those brackets. So that is how many rows deep we want our range to be. And then how many columns do we want it wide? We want it 1 column wide. And that is our named range. Okay, so when I click on that, you can see it automatically highlights that. If I now add a number on the bottom of that, single number, and go back to the name range, you can see now the range has expanded to include that number, simply because the number of rows that it's picking up has changed. So that's great. Right, now I want to set up another one for the period and another one for the profit. And the great thing about this is, if I just copy, highlight that, Control C to copy it, select a new one. This one I'm going to call profit. And then I'm going to paste that one in there. Now, all we need to do now is change the B's for the column B into column C. Now, actually, we don't need to do that because we will never have a profit number unless we've got a sales number. So I'm actually going to leave the height of the name range to be column B for all of the names that we're going to add. That way, as soon as you add a sales figure, it'll automatic. All the other name ranges will also expand, which is going to be useful. You'll see later. So, but instead of our start position being B, we're going to make it C because that's the profit column. And there we go. So now when we select that, you can see because we want that named range to expand in line with any sales figures added, regardless of whether there's a profit figure attached, that name now includes an extra row to account for that extra sales figure. And that is actually quite useful because when you're using them in charts, because in a chart, you want all your series to be the exact same length, really. So we're going to use this particular feature. We're going to always count the sales column to determine all of our name range sizes. So the last one we need to add is the period. So we're going to call that end period. And again, we'll copy and paste that the same formula in as before. And this time we're going to change that to start in column A. Be careful when you're clicking around in this because the moment you start clicking on screen, it starts disrupting the formula. So you've got to, you use any arrow keys or anything like that, it really messes it up. So just bear that in mind. Right, so we have our named ranges now. We're now going to put a chart on screen. So I'm just going to use Alt F1 to bring it up a simple chart. Okay, now let's put it about there for a moment. Now you can snap it to the grid actually by holding down Alt as you do that, and that will snap it to the grid. So I can do, for example, that to get it perfectly positioned within the grid squares of Excel. So I have a basic chart, but it's not dynamic. If I add extra sales figures on here, for example, nothing's going to happen. So what I need to do is go back to the design and the data selection, and I need to change these, all of these series. I need to edit them and change them so that instead of saying a particular range, I just link them straight to the named range. So I'm just going to swap out that data range there and just put end sales in. Okay, and I'll do the same with the profit. And I'll do the same with the x-axis. Now actually, we already have a dynamic chart now, because if I put in an extra number there, straight away, you can see Q1, so what would that be? 20 2019. So we already have a dynamic chart, and I've actually got the data here. If I actually put that on, you can see that chart automatically expanded. So that is the amazing auto-expanding chart in a nutshell. What we're going to do next is make it way better. So just as a quick recap, we're going to change it so that we can introduce features like this, where if we drop that one down to 950, for example, then and introduce this one up to 1,500, you can see the green bar is moving around. We can make something incredibly profitable. Then that one then becomes the most profitable quarter, and we're expanded around. So we're going to create that next. So what I'm going to do, just to tart this up a little bit, is I'm going to apply a custom template that I created a few videos ago. So if you want to see how I actually created this and this actual appearance, you can go back and look at that video. It's 7 tips on improving Excel chart appearance or something like that if you want to search for it. So I go to the design, select the chart type, pick from my templates. That's the template I want. I'm going to do that. And we're kind of there. We're far from perfect, but anyway, we have something, a good starting position. Right. So change the title for a start. So I like to keep my titles dynamic, so I'm just going to link that to there. All right. I'm going to make this chart a lot larger because we've got to fit quite a lot onto it. Right. So we've got a few little issues to iron out here for a start. So firstly, we've got some manual entries of profit on here. So we need to get rid of them. So we're going to select the whole of that series. I'm going to format it. So we'll format the whole thing like that for now. Okay, we need to change select these labels because they're not looking great either. So I'm just going to do a little bit of reformatting and get back to you. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better, but one of the problems is that we have our profit and sales figures the wrong way round. So I'm just going to show you that is an easy thing. We go back to our data and we just need to move the profit as the first item so that it goes to the bottom. So we'll do that. That's no problem at all. On with the show. How do we get columns highlighting? So the first thing we need to set up is some formulas. So if I move this slightly to the side, we're going to need to add a new series that only shows the maximum sales bar. Okay, this is the first one we're going to do. And then what we'll do is we'll make that bar take priority over the other series, and it will show on top of it. So if I call this column max sales and max sales profit, I'm just going to wrap them, and we're going to introduce a few more columns in a minute. So, right. So I'm just going to use an if formula and a max formula in here to pick up the maximum sales. So I'm going to put if this figure here, and I'm going to fix that because I always want to be looking at sales and the max sales, right? If that is equal to the max of the sales numbers, well, I'm actually going to have to extend that range because remember, this is a flexible chart. So I'm actually going to highlight the whole of that column there. So if the sales figure is the maximum, what do I want to do? Well, I want to show that sales figure. Otherwise, I'm going to generate an error, not applicable error, because errors don't show on charts at all. So I don't want anything to show. I don't want it to be a 0 because that still could mess things up, particularly if we've got a line chart, for example. If I drop that formula down, it should say yes, that is 1,200. If I now change that to 1,050, say, the max now becomes that one. So this is working. Right. And now I want a very similar formula for the profit, because I just want the attached profit. So in this case, actually this is going to work perfectly. So I think, let's just drop it down and check. Yes, so it's just going to pick up the profit associated with whatever the max sales are. We don't want the max profit, we want the profit attached to the max sales. So now I need to add that as a series on the chart. But it's a dynamic chart, remember. It's an amazing auto-expanding dynamic chart for that matter. So we need first to ensure we've got named ranges to capture our 2 new series. So if we go back to the name manager, now I'm just going to copy the formula from one of the previous ones to make things easy. So new, so what should we call this? Well, I'm just going to call it MS for max sales and then sales. Again, remember we're leaving the column B, standard sales, as the driver. So this is in column D, so just change that one to D and OK. And then I'm going to add another one, this one, max sales again, MS, profit. So the profit attached to that. And this is going to be in column E. Okay, so that's the name ranges set up. So now we can go back to the chart and we can add some new series in. So series name, I'll just click on that one for the moment. On here, so I tend to do that. Delete that. We're going to say MS sales. Okay. And then I need to add another series. That's that one. Oops, no space. Profit. We'll just leave it at that for the moment and we'll OK it. So that's really messed things up, as you can quite rightly see. So it's basically stacked it on top. So the first thing we need to do is change this to a different series. So if we click on the actual series there, go to the series order, we're going to put it on a secondary axis. Okay, and then we'll do the same for that one, put that on a secondary axis also. And you can see it's covering up. It's a bad colour, but it's not too bad. It needs some formatting. It's got some formatting issues. Whenever you introduce a secondary axis onto a chart, or dual axis, you have the potential problem of it having a different alignment to the primary axis. And the way that you would normally get around that is that you introduce a point, a maximum point onto both series. So you introduce 2 new data series, one on each axis, that are identical and always equal the maximum that the chart could possibly cope with. So I'm going to do that for the sake of showing you how to do it. But actually, because I happen to be using the max sales as a particular data series here, I've effectively already done that, because the max sales will by definition be on both the primary and the secondary axis in this case. But I'll show you how you would get around it if you're just not the max that you want to highlight, for example. You might want to highlight just the minimum. So on the maximum, what we're going to do is put a max figure in here, and we're going to just literally do the formula max. And actually, I'm just going to say max of everything. We can't do max of that, but you can do max of those 2 columns, sales and profit. Can't see how profit could ever be maximum, but we'll do that. Doesn't matter. Right, we get a max number there. I'll just copy the format from there. Right, so that's our max. So I'm now going to introduce that as a series as well on the chart. So I'm just going to call it max P for max primary, the primary axis. So I'll add that, and add another one, max S secondary on there. So I've now added two new series, max P, max S. They're literally a single data point equal to the maximum value that we could possibly plot on our chart. I'm going to OK it. Again, it's truly messed the chart up. And the reason for that is that it's plotted it on as a stacked bar. So what we need to do is we need to go to the combo, change the chart type, go to the combo, and have a look at these two new series, and you can see they've been added as stacked columns. Well, for a start, they've also both been added to the secondary series. So we don't want that on the primary series, and we don't want it as a stacked column because then we're going to actually see it. We don't want to see it, so we're going to plot it as a line. But because it's a single data point, we're probably not going to be able to see it. So plot that as a line, change them both to a line, make sure the P, which was our primary, is on the primary axis, S on the secondary axis, and there we go. You can see that the big column is on the bottom and then profit is on the top, so we need to reverse that. So we go back to select data, you can see why. It's because we've got profit, sales, and then on here we've got sales and profit. So we need to ensure that that is above that for a start. So if I OK that for the moment, you can see it's done that. But it's not clearly showing through because it's in behind what we want. So it's only that it's transparent, we can actually see it. So what we need to do is move both of these right to the top and OK them. We should now be able to fill with, you can see we've highlighted max sales because it's over here. We treat the colour differently, so we're going to go with a green, and then we'll do the bottom one, which is max sales there. We'll go with 60% say. And while we're at it, we'll do this series too. So this one we'll do as that blue, as it is, and the bottom one will go with 60% also. And then we'll change all these data labels to black. So we're getting somewhere now, right? So if I now introduce this one up to 1 to 50, for example, we have a dynamically moving green bar. We also have, we can now remove, add new data. So if I want to do Q1 2020, for example, and put on there, you know, a new sales figure, 1,400 with a profit of 500. Perhaps that's a little high. Let's go down to probably 987, say. Right. $340. Okay. And again, we can, if we just delete these, the chart jumps back again. Still a little bit messy. On here, you can see we have data labels that we don't want. So we go to Format, Max Sales Profit Data Labels. We just want to get rid of them, basically. So we go on here, untick the value. Okay. These data label, untick value. So that's that data label gone. Right, we should, if we expand this, yes, we should, I was going to say, should have more entries now. So we're getting somewhere. Right, one thing I don't like is we've now got a secondary axis showing. So we can get rid of that by going to the highlighting axis, going to the labels, where it says label position, do none. Don't do what I did earlier and just hit delete on that axis, because the whole thing disappears. It's not like removing grid lines. So we're going to get rid of that. So there we go. Right. So I need to just tidy up this legend a bit straight away. So I don't like max P and max S appearing on it, so we can highlight those individually. So just to do that again, there's one click to highlight the legend, second click will highlight the actual item, hit the delete to get rid of it. Again, on that one, do that. Right, let's introduce the profit one in pretty much the same way, but this one we're going to introduce a helper column as well. So this one is going to be max profit percentage sales and max profit percentage profit. Ridiculous names, I know, but we'll sort that out in a minute. So what we want, we probably want to know what the profit percentage is. So we'll use that as a helper column. Just move this over, whoops, with the chart I wanted to. Right, so the profit percentage is just going to be profit divided by the sales. And we'll make that a percentage, and just move this chart, it's slightly annoying. Double click on that to fill down. Now we can do an if statement to test if that is the max. So we can actually use this formula, put it over here, copy and paste that over there using Control-C, Control-V. Using F2, that's what I like to do, we can actually just move stuff around a bit. So we're going to say we want to look at the max profit. So we can drag those around, and we want to pick up the actual sales figure from the when we're at the max profit, and that is going to work. So let's do that. Drop that down. So 45%, yes, that looks like the max, and it's picked up the sales associated with that. That column there we can copy and paste, Control-C, Control-V to pick up the associated profit. So what we got to do next? Put that on our chart. Hopefully you remembered. Named range. Right, we need to introduce yet another named range. But we should be getting quite good at this. So formulas, name manager. We've already got similar ones, so let's just take one of those, copy and paste that data. Control-C again. New name range. Right, I'm going to call this MP for max profit and then sales. And what's max profit sales is in column F. So change that first letter there to column F. Okay, right, another new one. Max profit, profit. That one is going to be in column G. So we've got those. So we have our new range set up. Now let's add it to the chart. So selecting new data, add a new data range. So it's that one. There, sorry. Right, here we go. And then instead of there, you have to put the sheet name in front of these, by the way. It doesn't work if you don't. MP max profit sales. Okay, add another new one. It's profit, profit. Right, max profit, profit. Must be spelt correctly. Right, we now have those. So we now need to move them up because they need to be prioritised above the standard sales and profit figures. So we'll move them to there for the moment. And profit has to come before sales, as it does on all the rest, because we need when they show this, profit has to be the first bar, and then we stack on the sales on top of that. One thing we do need to decide is if the max profit and the max sales happen to be in exactly the same quarter, what do we want to highlight the most? So I'm going to stick with highlighting the max sales, but if we were to promote these two profit figures above, that would do that. Or we could do a bit of a mixture. So for example, we could show the max profit as a priority above the max profit sales, for example, here. And then what that would do is if they both happen to occur in the same month, the profit figure, we're going to make these yellow by the way, the profit figure would show as yellow with the sales bar showing as green, so indicating that you've got not only the max sales but also the max profit percentage. So you could do something like that. So that might work quite well. I'm going to try that. We then need to go back to the chart type and to the combo, and we need to see what's going on here. Right, so we've got all manner of different series happening here. So sales and profit is our primary thing, and so is the max for the primary. On the secondary axis is everything else, and it's put it in as a line chart, which is why we're not able to see it. We need to put it in as a stacked column. So we'll put it as a stacked column. Okay. And you can see it's actually put it over here. So it's nicely highlighted. But if you couldn't see it for any reason, you can always go in here, select it from the drop down list, max profit percentage profit, and that would just highlight it there. And then we're going to give that a solid fill of yellow, as I say. So we were going, 60% lighter, weren't we? I seem to remember. And then above, we were going the top dark one. Right. So now, if I make that a highly profitable month, for example, it will move over to there. If I make that sales figure the best, probably will become not so profitable. So what I'm going to do is manufacture a situation where they're both very highly profitable, and that's interesting, isn't it? What we need to do is we need to do something else within our formulas here. We don't need to change our chart actually. This is to do with our Excel formulas. So what we could do is we could build into the one or other of these. We need to decide which is going to be our priority. If sales is our priority, we want it to only calculate the profit percentage maximum if it's not also the sales maximum. So the easy thing to do here, we can introduce quite a good formula. We can make use of the if error formula. So we only want, or if is error, sorry. So we're only going to calculate this if the max sales column is an error. Otherwise, we're just going to generate an error anyway. And that will get rid of this instantly. So let me see what I mean. So we're going to take the whole of that formula and embed it in another if formula. So we're going to say if, we can't, right, is error that. So if the sales column is an error, is error. Now I'll just fix that to the sales column. I'm pushing F4 several times. That basically fixes different elements of the cell I'm referencing. Close the brackets. So if the sales is an error, do the calculation. Otherwise, show an error yourself. So it's a slight adaptation to that formula. Now that is a formula I made sure we can use in both columns. So I'm just going to copy and paste that down. That makes everything an error. That means if it's the most profitable, it doesn't actually show it anymore. Now if I make that very unprofitable again, you now have your profit figure appearing back again. So that's all working pretty well. So a couple more things that I want to tidy up on here. The first is this confusing looking legend. So I think that if you know that sales and profit are dark blue and light blue, you can probably just get away with two other legend entries to say green being max sales quarter and yellow being max profitability, max profit quarter or something like that. So the way we do that is we're just going to rename the series so that the legend appears differently, and then we can delete the legend entries that we no longer need. So let's do that right now. So go to select the data. So I think for we want to pick the dark yellow and dark green. So the max sales, that's the one. We just need to call that one. We'll just, instead of calling it max sales, we'll just call it max sales. Which is okay. So I'll call that max sales. And then we want the max profit sales. That's that one because that's dark color. We'll just call that max profit percentage. Okay, and then we will remove the other two legend entries that we no longer require. That's that. So I think that's looking pretty good. I might just make those white again. They were white before. Yeah. Pretty good. The only thing that we did before, we curved off some edges. So I'll just quickly show you as a bonus how to curve off these edges on this screen. And it's simply, we're just going to add shapes in. So we can add, insert shapes. We can insert any kind of shape we want, although my personal favourite is to insert this rectangle with the corners shut up. Now we're going to need 3 of these, and we've got to make sure they're all formatted pretty much the same, and it's kind of handy to have them roughly the similar sorts of dimensions to, so that kind of rounding, if that's what you want, make sure you're using something that's going to be a similar sort of height to what you want. So we'll say that we don't want a line on it though, so we'll have that. So I'm going to make 3 of these identical. So we've got 3 different colours. This one we'll do is yellow. This one needs to be the green. So we'll paste that one on top of those. Okay. Copy that one onto there. And copy that one onto there. And that is simple as that. And then you can get a shot of these, you no longer need them. And that should, fingers crossed, automatically translate across the entire series wherever it appears. So that's how you create the amazing auto-expanding dynamic chart. You can download the finished spreadsheet from the link in the description below. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, and make sure you keep up to date with Up for Excel's latest tips and tricks. See you soon.